Hi, everyone. Welcome to Morning Matcha. Today's guest is Kathryn Budig, who's a yoga teacher, a writer, author, chef, and a dog mom. Hi, Kathryn.
Hi. You said my last name right. That's impressive.
Do people mess up on it?
Every time.
What do they say?
Budig, Budig,
Oh.
Buding.
It could be like French, right?
That would be sophisticated. It's German, actually.
Oh. Mm-hmm.
So who knows? We could be pronouncing it wrong.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
That's how my dad calls it. Yeah.
Kathryn Budig. Well, it's so nice to be here with you today.
Likewise.
And I was just thinking about, our conversation, and I was thinking I could maybe a year ago, I would have totally am fangirling over you, and I'm so excited, and I get to interview a lot of people, but this is really really for me because I have a background in yoga, and I went to culinary school for raw food. I'm definitely not a raw foodie at all by any means at this point.
That must have been fascinating, though.
It was fun, and around the same time, I was just following along with your journey and everything, and like I mentioned to you earlier, I have a husky, and so I just felt like we had a lot in common. And
team dog hair.
And literally, it's like my car.
Vacuum 2 times a day.
Yeah, so bad. But yeah, so it's so nice to sit here with you and ask about, how you got started and just share with our readers and listeners about just your career and what you're all about, because you truly are someone who lives her truth, and it's not just a saying.
True. I try to do that very much so. Yeah, the career has been really interesting. Even when you were asking me earlier, how do I intro you? That's a struggle for me right now. It used to be very simple, yoga teacher. Mm-hmm. And it's one of those things where we go through seasons in our life, and I'm definitely entering a new season of my life right now and trying to figure out what I want to bring with me and what I'm ready to let go of and what that evolution looks like. Mm-hmm. But I started out in Los Angeles. Well, there were things that happened before LA, but my career really started in LA, where I trained at Yoga Works with Mati Azrati and Chuck Miller at Yoga Works.
The founders, right?
Not exactly. Mm-hmm. And Mati is my mentor, and I love her to death. And she saw something special in me. And I did the training just thinking it was a cool job that I could do on the side to make money in LA, because I was still pursuing acting. At the time. I had a big theatrical background. And I fell in love with yoga. And
what was here at the time? It was just Yoga Works, or how did you even find it?
Yoga Works Exhale was really popular in Santa Monica. Think Shiva Ray, Saul David Ray. It was a different world, because it wasn't something, there was the Sean Corn and the Baron Baptistes, and it wasn't a career that you went into because you wanted to be famous or make money or be really successful. It was definitely a passion project. And I was young. I was 21, I think, when I did my training. And I started teaching a bunch at Yoga Works. And eventually I saw some people were on the travel circuit. And I was like, oh, this sounds kind of interesting. So when I would go visit my family in Charleston, I reached out to the Savannah Yoga Center and the Charleston Yoga Center there, being like, hey, I'm going to be in town, and you don't need to pay for anything except for just the tickets. Would you let me teach there?
Tickets, flying you there?
Yeah,
that's amazing.
You don't have to fly me. Yeah. You don't have to put me up. You don't have to feed me. You don't have to do anything. I'll get myself there. I'll take care of myself. Is that okay? And a few suckers said yes. And I, wedged my way in. And it was the kind of thing back in the day is once you got on the travel circuit, you were kind of in. Mm-hmm. So that's where I started to travel. I really only wanted to do it a couple times a year. And fast forward years and years later, it turned into almost once a week. Mm-hmm. And now I'm trying to revert away from that, where I'm maybe traveling once a month feels more ideal for me, or eventually it would be nice to do even less. So, and yoga, and anyone who does yoga, it's not just asana practice. It's not just the poses. Then you get curious about nutrition and wellness and meditation, and how do I exist in the world as a human under this umbrella and premise of yoga. Mm-hmm. So it really turned into a whole lifestyle, but also what is my interpretation of that lifestyle versus what are the expectations? And I don't know if we're going to go there, but the yoga world, bless its heart, And if you're from the South, that's what you say when you're actually trying to say it's a shit show. Yoga is so amazing, but the community loves to get on this like superior moral platform.
Yeah, it's all about perfection.
Yeah, and it's terrifying and it's really sad. And so I'm trying to take the principles that I've learned and loosen them up. But like, how can I be a good person that doesn't have their nose up and is ready to shoot everyone down for everything that they're doing incorrectly?
Yeah.
Which I see happening a lot.
And was it always like that for you? Or did you ever find yourself falling into that super rigid trap?
Well, I think so. I'm a vinyasa teacher would be probably the most generic way to describe me. But my background, Yoga Works is a mix of Iyengar yoga, Ashtanga yoga, and Vini. So that's my training. But I did a ton of Mysore style Ashtanga for a long time. So I think for a long time, you're just kind of trained to be like, Ashtanga is the way to be. And then the Iyengar yogis are like, no, it's Iyengar. And then, everyone has their own thing. So it's like we already have these different schools of yoga that think they're better than the other for
they
XYZ.
judge each other. Yeah.
So that was more of the superiority complex that happened in my time, was more my yoga's better than your yoga. Social media wasn't a thing yet. I remember when Facebook came to be, and one of my best friends, Jessie Shine, who's a yoga teacher also, we were both like, let's get profiles and see who can get the most friends first. And it wasn't a business thing. It was just like a silly,
competition.
Personal.
Yeah.
And then it ended up being this booming business platform. And then Instagram, which I thought was just something that you use to put filters on your photos to look pretty. I didn't even know it was a sharing platform for the longest time.
Oh my God.
Yeah, thank God. I had to go through and I figured that out and be like, oh, delete.
Your personal photo diary that everyone just happens to see.
Right, the photos that you want to filter because you're sending it to someone. So I do feel like social media, for all the good things that it does, it's also dramatically changed the yoga community.
Yeah.
Sometimes for the better, but I would say
no, for the
mostly
majority,
for the worse. Yeah.
Like, look what I can do, or that's what the whole thing is, though.
I think the biggest beef that I have with it is just when I grew up. When I grew up in the yoga world, if you wanted to be someone in the yoga world, you had to train. And you had to train with the best, and you had to get out there, and you had to hustle, and you had to garner experience, and you had to teach 1 million classes, and you had to work. And now it's more of a like, people look at a number of following, and that's synonymous with, oh, you're advanced.
Expertise, yeah.
Exactly, which is completely incorrect.
Yeah.
And not to say that people with big followings aren't great. Like, there are people with big followings that are excellent. There's also... Mati, my teacher, she doesn't have a big social media following, and she's one of the best teachers in the world. So that's where it saddens me, because I see a lot of people going through teacher training and being like, okay, how do I be like you now?
Yeah.
I'm like, do you know how long this took? Like, it's work. You need to go learn how to be a student first, and then you have to teach, and that's how you become a good teacher. But that applies to many, many jobs beyond yoga.
Yeah.
I know.
And that's true. And I want to get into that too, because you do this nowadays. Anyone could just sign up for the 200-hour and be a yoga instructor. But like you're saying, it takes work. And part of that work is also confidence.
Yes.
Confidence that you can and are able to do this. Obviously, it takes a lot of teaching and practicing to really understand the concepts. But that transfers into all areas of life and all other jobs as well.
Yeah.
People who are just graduating or just getting into their careers. I think just talking about confidence is really interesting. I know you talk about body image, but also I want to get into body image, but also just confidence in general and what you learned about yourself. Like, were you confident from the beginning?
No.
Yeah.
No. I think the word that actually comes up for me when I hear confidence is the word resistance. There's actually this really great book called The War of Art, which is the play on the art of war. And the whole concept is resistance. And especially if you are an artist or a writer or a performer of some sorts, the resistance that you feel in your life. And that we all feel it, that it almost has its own identity. And most of us never get beyond the resistance. which is translated to lack of confidence.
Resistance to
resistance to being bigger, resistance to writing that novel that you want to write, to teaching those classes that you want to teach. Like, I want to leave my job and become a yoga teacher. I want to, create the next best symphony, whatever it is, that voice in your head that's like, you're not good enough. There are people better than you, whatever it is. And, the whole concept is where you feel the strongest resistance is your power. And that's the biggest thing that you should be pursuing. Because, you hear people say that all the time. I got a phone call the other day to audition for this thing. I'm sorry, I can't talk about it. But I immediately was like, oh, my guts were wrenching. And I was like, I can't, I'm not, that's like outside of my wheelhouse. I'm not good enough to do this. And then, once I sat with that, it's like full steam ahead. I don't know if it's going to come to fruition or not, but I did throw myself into, I'm going to try.
That's so exciting.
Yeah, because it matters. It's in the same way that, really big athletes still get wildly nervous before they play. And that means that it's still there. I mean, teachers, what do I do? Like, how do I get rid of the nerves before I teach? You don't, you use it. You just have to learn how to transmit the jitters into adrenaline and energy and specializing in your message and what it is that you want to convey. So it's not bad. You just have to lean into it.
Yeah.
And use it.
Yeah, because it's just a voice in your head that you have to...
I don't think many people are confident. I just think that's this...
facade.
Absolutely a facade. And I think it's kind of a marketing tool. Learn how to be confident. It's like, no. I think you just learn how to get more comfortable with unease and use it to your benefit. And then you can look back and be like, I feel really good about that. I mean, I'm confident about things in retrospect. We're like, that class was awesome.
Yeah.
That recipe was really good. But when you're putting the offering out into the world, there's always that like, ooh, I could have done better. It's not, how are people going to, because we wait for the response of others to often judge whether or not we did a good job, which is something that I do work on, is like, how can I feel complete within myself regardless of the expectation of others?
Yeah.
And that is a daily practice, like hands down.
Yeah. It's always changing.
Oh gosh, and when people ask me, how are you so confident? I don't think I am, because I am always working on it. You just don't get to see the internal musings of a person outside of them. You get to normally see the kind of finished, practiced product. Especially
now with social media. It's like crazy.
And with all those pretty filters, how do you say no to popping the colors? It's so pretty.
Yeah.
It's so difficult to just let something be. Yeah.
So when did you start honing in on the body stuff and really just speaking up about it? And was it because of the community that you were in?
Yes. I mean, I think I'm a human, so I have body image issues because I'm a human. Step one. And I don't think it's gender specific at all, by the way. You just tend to hear women speak about it more. And then I was also a young yoga teacher in the wellness world. And the wellness world, especially behind the scenes with people who cast you or people who photograph you or they want to put you in something, they're looking for young, fit, skinny people. And I mean, we're definitely now finally seeing this movement into more body types. But for the longest time, it's been white, skinny, girl next door, boy next door, just generic, flawless, no cellulite.
So crazy.
Yeah. And it's just, you can't help but fall into that place of oh, I have to look this way. And even when I was younger, if I knew I had to do a photo shoot, I'm such a big eater that I'm so grateful to Spirit or my mom or whoever made me love food so much, because I've never had the discipline to do something bad to myself because I like to eat too much.
Yeah.
I'll tell myself oh, I'm going to eat less. And then an hour passes. I'm like, gotta eat. So, but it's just, but I still know that struggle of wow, that the neuroses and that self-hatred that comes up with I have to look this way. And if I don't look this way, I'm going to be judged. For me, and my weight has fluctuated a lot. I mean, I think at my skinniest, I was 108 pounds and I'm 5'2", which was pretty petite for my body. Right now, I actually don't own a scale because it makes me feel bad about life.
Same.
So I think I'm somewhere between like 120 and 125 right now. And it's just, I fluctuate, but it's very difficult for me as a 35-year-old woman now, being on the heavier spectrum of what I've been in my life. I find myself looking at old photos of myself, lusting for that younger physique. But it's just been nice to actually fluctuate, because then I feel like at least my body is a bit more relatable to more people, and I can't be relatable to everybody because I don't look like everybody. And I just try to share my personal story in hopes that it will reach someone and it will help them in their situation. Maybe I'm going to turn some people off. It is definitely not my intention to do so, but just whoever needs to hear what I have to say is going to benefit from it, as long as I'm trying to come from a very thoughtful, inclusive verbiage and platform.
Are there people that don't want to hear it?
Absolutely. I'm a size 4. Like,
yeah,
so
they're
I understand that to the general public, like, I'm a petite.
Yeah, you are.
Body type that people would want to achieve. And I think that's a problem that a lot of people in the spotlight forget. That if you were, even a size 6 is like, I don't even know what the normal size is in America now. I think it's a size, I don't know, 12 or something like that. Like, I don't even like to say one size is big, one is skinny, and one is plus. Like, what does that even mean? But it's just, I think anyone who has a platform, you have to be sensitive. If you're like, I'm really struggling with my body image, and then you put some really beautiful fucking photo. Can I say that, by the way?
Yeah,
okay. Totally. Photo of yourself talking about your insecurities, you're going to trigger people. Because they're going to be like, shut up. Like, I would love to look like that. I see that happen to me all the time when I'm reading feeds, and I'm just like, what? You struggle? And that's my gut reaction. And then I have to reel it back in and be like, yeah, everybody struggles.
Yeah.
And just because they look like that doesn't lessen their experience. But if you do look like that, you can be a bit more sensitive if you're trying to help people about how you phrase it. That's all.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
And did you do a TED Talk on this, or was it Mind Body?
I've not done a TED Talk. I would love to do a TED Talk.
You should.
TED.
Was it Mind Body Green?
It was Mind Body Green. Yes.
I
did a talk
that.
for Mind Body Green Revitalize, and it was about, it just, I've had nasty comments on Instagram about my body before, and Facebook and all of that. And it was about body shaming. And
well, it started even from like that toe socks thing, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I can, as I look back, I can see how that triggers people too.
What was everyone's problem with it?
Well, I am just wearing socks. So there's that. It was a black and white campaign of me in my birthday suit with my toe socks on doing yoga poses. And I was super honored to be part of the campaign because I love the photographer. The photographer's name is Jasper Joe Hall, and he's just wildly talented. He photographs yogis and dancers. His main thing is in the nude, and the campaign for him is called Body as Temple. And he just has spectacular lighting that, showcases all the curves of the body and the muscles and this and that. And I just think it's art. And I really wanted to work with him. And then Toe Socks asked us, and I think I was like 24, 25 when I shot it. And I just didn't think ahead of what this meant or what it would look like or how people would interpret it. And you learn lessons the hard way. And I don't regret doing it because my intention was in the right place. But it's also like, yeah, I get it. I was a young, white, blonde, skinny yoga girl, which there's none of those, we need more of those. Like, I get it. I get that I look like the thing that the world desperately needs to cut back on. And does that mean I shouldn't have done the campaign? I don't know.
No.
I don't know. Actually, I really don't have an answer for that, because the world could use 100% more diversity than what we have right now. But
I think that's a really interesting thing to talk about, because I'm Persian. I'm not I'm young, but I'm not a white girl with blue eyes.
We're still young.
Yeah. I'm still young, but and I never really I'm a first generation, so my parents are from Iran, but I was born here.
Okay.
And I never really I spoke Farsi until I was 5. And then even though I grew up here, so they really like ingrained the culture in me. But at the same time, I found myself like not I didn't know, but I would just like want to be like everyone else when I was younger. Or I didn't really think that I felt different, but I don't know, for some reason, basically I just like integrated into the American culture, and that's just part of growing up here. But it wasn't until recently that I started really identifying with my culture more.
Mm-hmm.
And then with the whole election stuff happening and all that, then I started getting super sensitive and feeling like, you know, with the whole Muslim ban, then I was like, oh my God, like, where's my place in the world? But I think it's so important to talk about your perspective as well, because you're so aware of yourself and where you stand in the world, and you have so much intention and integrity. But like, you exist and you're here. And so it shouldn't mean that you shouldn't exist.
Right.
You know,
it's
so
complicated.
It's super complicated, and it shouldn't mean that you shouldn't be in the limelight or whatever. It just should mean that other people should also have the opportunity. And now, one good thing about social media is that is a way that people can create that for themselves and create their own community, and then also like step into the spotlight or whatever, and show that there is diversity. Because before, I guess it would have been more difficult because bigger
I guess
companies.
we do have our residing president to thank for that. I don't even like using his name that much. But I do feel like in the wake of the election, what we've learned is how much this pendulum can swing.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously we've been here for a long time on so many issues. And because of the chaos that's been unleashed, we've had this massive swing to the other side, which in many ways is amazing because it's waking people up. It's making them look at things in a completely different light. That's fantastic. But obviously, any polarity is not great.
Mm-hmm.
And I do think once you swing all the way to the opposite side, we start to hopefully eventually balance out.
Mm-hmm.
But at least when we get to that peak on the other side, we see things that we've never seen before. And it doesn't mean that like, oh, you belong and you don't belong. It means listen to your neighbors, listen to other perspectives, understand who you are and your role and what you play. And then let's all get together and see like, okay,
mm-hmm.
you know, sometimes things don't seem fair, but what doesn't seem fair to me has been completely unfair to a person for generations of their entire life.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean that you have to like pay for that, but you have to listen, you have to understand and get together.
Mm-hmm.
So I do not have an answer to all of that, but I just am hyper aware of my position within the yoga community, and I can't change the way that I look or my upbringing or my heritage, but I can be very particular with my words and my interactions and what I try to do in hopes that it helps and makes a difference.
So do you believe everyone has a responsibility to do that as well?
I do.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. I think everyone has a responsibility to understand. Understand's a hard word because I don't think everyone can understand, but to try,
mm-hmm.
To listen, to be observant. And we are really blessed because we live in urban areas. The problem is once you step outside of Los Angeles, New York, even Charleston, where I live, it's a very different world. And maybe those views aren't what you and I agree with, but that's also the only thing they've been given.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how they've been raised. And that's a hard shell to break through.
Yeah.
So it's not an excuse, but it's like, we can't just get on our high horse and be like, this is the right way and that's the wrong way, because that's not solving anything either. It's like, okay, let's try to understand how I got to where I am, how you got to where you are, and how can we, join forces in some shape or form. Yeah.
And actually, while you've been talking, I started thinking about the whole Facebook thing that's happening right now.
Mm-hmm.
And how...
You're talking about the privacy. Yeah.
And just how, like, they use these algorithms to feed us, like, what...
Oh, it's disgusting.
It's so
Shame
crazy.
on them. Yeah.
I mean, like, I knew that this was happening, but this is just, like, actually proof.
Yeah.
Like, you can see it if you step outside yourself for a little bit and you're like, wait, what? Like, how did they know? Or it's...
There's a really interesting interview with a Google ethicist who it was on Sam Harris's podcast on Waking Up. And I can't think of the ethicist's name. That's a hard word.
So they have ethicists?
Yes.
That's amazing.
And he was saying how they definitely came up with algorithms that are they're addictive. Like they are straight up meant to be addictive. There's even studies now where you look at alcohol and cigarettes and anything that comes with a warning label on it, and how maybe down the line, kids won't be able to use smartphones and computers into a certain age because they are just as addictive as tobacco, as alcohol. And that should come with a warning label too. And it's, you know, it's also new in our world that I don't think we've had time to fully digest what it all means.
Is it addictive because, well, obviously phones are addictive for many reasons, but what the Google ethicist was saying.
I mean, they've researched I don't remember exactly like ABC plus this equals addiction. But I mean, they're definitely the way things are set up in these platforms, like the clickbait and everything. It's meant to send you down the rabbit hole.
Totally. And it like, what's the word? Like validates your viewpoint too. Yeah. So just like feeds you what you already believe in. Yeah. And then that's how you go down the rabbit hole. And then you're like more righteous in your viewpoint and you're less willing to hear someone else's.
Yeah. Views. And I feel like it's killing my brain cells too, honestly.
Totally.
We're all just going to be these little zombies with a screen in front of our face if we don't wake up and shake it up a little bit.
I actually just did Panchakarma for the first time.
Okay.
And I'm on a screen all the time. Like I'm always on my phone or my computer, just like everyone else, but even like...
Especially with your job.
Yeah, with my job, it's all online too. Right. So, but when my Panchakarma, she was like doing the oil on my third eye and my eyes were vibrating for like 30 minutes. And I was like, I feel like I'm getting my sight back or something, like, because my eyes have just been like, you know, depleted of whatever. So that was a really amazing experience. And it really made me think about how much time I spend like, and I have had LASIK eye surgery. I mean, I already have bad eyes, or I did. I don't anymore, but I'm so conscious of it because, you know, before it was like when I was younger, we spent so much time watching TV like all day long because my parents were working. And it's like literally that's all we did. School, TV. Sad.
I cried when my mom got me the Disney Channel when I was little. I was like, I have the best mom in the world.
That is amazing.
You know? But yeah, I start to get vertigo if I'm on a computer screen for too long.
Yeah.
I think, well, I know we could all benefit from spending less time on it. And listening to podcasts. So much better for your eyes.
I know. This one you can watch too, though.
It's true.
Yeah. But yeah, so, you know, addiction, it comes in all shapes and forms and where we least look at it. I want to talk about relationship with you.
Okay.
So just in general, like, again, I've been following you. So I remember when you got engaged to your boyfriend before, and then you guys got married, and then you got divorced, and now you're engaged to Kate. And I just want to hear about like how that trajectory was for you and how that all went down, and is it all a blur for you, and how I want to, and then we'll get into like sexuality, and because we live in a society that still wants to, even though we're progressive and we're changing in these urban areas, we still want to like put people in a box and have them identify with something. And I think that's the problem to begin with. And so I'm very curious about your journey and how, if you felt that as well.
I completely agree that people like to check you off and put you in a box. And I know since getting the divorce and since coming out with being with Kate, and that a lot of people don't, and even with my career, that I'm not just doing yoga and all these other things that I'm doing, people are like, I don't understand what you are.
Yeah.
I mean, you even look, social media shows us this. The pages that do really, really well are the pages that give the exact same kind of content every single day.
Totally.
The look is, it's a brand. It looks a certain way. I know I'm coming to you because you create orange pillows. You are the orange pillow page. People just, they love that. So it's been a little bit of a battle for me in the sense that, like, of course, like, I want people to like me. I want to feel like what I'm putting out into the world is something people want. But that's also, so many people fall victim to that, and then they become part of the machine because they're not really putting their gifts out into the world that they want to share. They're putting out what they think people want to see from them. And I don't fault anyone for doing that because it's very easy to do. But with Kate, I think more than it was less like, oh my gosh, what are people going to think of me being with a woman? And more like, oh my God, I just had a really public wedding, like whatever amount of time, not very long ago. And now I'm going to come out that I'm not with my husband anymore. And I didn't spend a lot of time with fear of like, people aren't going to respect me. Cause it's just like, I don't care if you don't respect me for leaving a relationship that I was miserable in.
Yeah. It's your life.
Yeah.
Like it's not theirs.
And once I did the rounds with my friends and my family and they were all supportive, then it was just like, okay. I mean, I have no choice but to march forward. It was terrifying. Anyone who's been through divorce knows how terrifying it is and miserable and nasty people are. But it just, every ounce of my body was like, this is right.
Well, your whole platform is Aim True.
Yeah.
And that's like what you went to. But I'm so curious about like how because I'm sure you felt like you were aiming true when you got married.
Oh,
and
absolutely.
Yeah.
And I even tell people your aim can change.
Yeah.
It's not one tangible thing. It's an energy. And at the time when I was with my ex-husband, I was in love with him. He was in love with me. It was the right thing. And then somewhere along the way, I knew it wasn't right, but I was like, this is just being adult and this is what it feels like. And I just made excuse after excuse after excuse instead of really listening to how I was feeling. And then finally, when Kate came into my life, it was just like a baseball bat to the face.
That's amazing. I mean, I feel like that probably doesn't feel amazing having a baseball bat to your face, but it's just so amazing.
Yeah. The wake up is pretty epic. And, at first, and I didn't know if things were going to work out with her, and it was different and crazy and wild, but it was just felt like I had my person finally in my life. And
how did you meet?
We met, I used to be sponsored by Under Armour, and they would send me to the ESPNW Summit that was held once a year. And she was speaking at it and I was teaching at it. And we had met a couple times really briefly before. And she came to my classes that I was teaching. And then we just finally got to connect and talk.
That's so cool.
I got to hear her speak. And she's really wildly intelligent and magnetic. And we kept in touch. And, she thought I was a heterosexual woman who didn't understand my feelings.
Did you think that you were, or
I've never identified with heterosexual, but I've never identified with bi either. I've never, and it goes back to the labels. I'm like, there isn't a box that I can check that feels like me.
Yeah.
And like, even now when people are like, oh, so you're a lesbian now. I'm like, no, like that's not how I identify either. Because I've historically been in romantic relationships with men my entire life. I've also been involved with women, but my relationships have been with men. And yes, now I'm going to marry a woman. But so I identify as fluid because I'm attracted to people. And
yeah, you fell in love with the person.
Yes, exactly. And I feel lucky in the kind of political climate that we're in right now that people are waking up and learning more. So I feel that the one good part is that people are way more like they're like sponges for information. They want to learn how to speak properly. They want to understand.
Yeah.
And I feel like a couple years ago, it may have been different.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's so amazing. So now you're engaged.
Yes.
How long has that been a thing?
Couple months last year, and we haven't announced it, and we're not going to, and we're not making anything public. I learned my lesson. This is for us. Like it's not a shame thing. It's just like our relationship is not for the public. Like, yes, we do things publicly together as a couple, but we want to keep that around like our podcast, and we wanted to keep it around the things that we do work-wise together, and the occasional like, oh, here's a photo of us and we're doing this, or I'll share an essay that I think might help people. But it's just, we want our life to be for us.
Yeah.
And to not get caught up in the external outer interpretation of who people think we are.
I love that. So when life hits you with a baseball bat, or when it hit you,
yes.
you finding yourself depressed ever, or did you go through I'm sure emotions come and go,
I was numb. I think numb is the best word. And I could kind of tell that I was numbing out and with my ex. I just couldn't verbalize what it was. And funny enough, I actually had a real bout of depression once Kate and I moved to Brooklyn because I was digesting the divorce. I left my home. I was in a new place. Career-wise, I had no idea what I wanted to do. I just knew I didn't want to do the same thing. And anyone who's lived in New York, you get it. New York is just a lot.
Yeah.
And that's when I finally went to a therapist, and because my best friend is a nurse anesthetist, and she was like, you might benefit from a low-dose antidepressant. And as a yoga teacher, I'm like, oh, I don't need that. But,
I just have a handstand practice that's going to help.
Which, handstand meditation helps. But sometimes people are chemically imbalanced. And so, I went to a New York City psychiatrist, did the whole thing. We ended up deciding I didn't need to go on something, but I started talking to him every single week, and huge proponent of therapy. I think anyone, I also feel very privileged that I had the funds to go talk to someone, but it was amazing. And now I speak regularly I have a couple different people who really help me that I always reach out to when I have trouble formulating my thoughts, because there's no such thing as if you're a life coach or a yoga teacher, no one has it all figured out. Nobody. No. And if they act like they do, run far, 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 far away from them, because we all have, life is complicated, and there's just honestly so many beautiful things in my life right now. There's so many horrible, really hard things that I'm dealing with right now too. And it's just, I can't just be all glowy and smiley for people because that's what they want from me. So, you really need to take the time, whether you're a mom or you feel like you're the caretaker of someone, to bring that back in for yourself. That's huge.
Well, what can we expect from you for your career? Or what's coming up next?
No. I'm moving more and more into food right now because it has been something I've been so in love with for a long time. I just want to clarify, when I say I'm moving into food, that doesn't mean I'm moving away from yoga.
Yeah.
I would like to travel less because it's depleting me, and I need a routine. I'm still contributing regularly to yogaglow.com. And so that's where people can practice with me online.
Oh, cool.
So they don't have to travel somewhere to find me. But I've got a few tricks up my sleeve with the cooking world that I want to explore. And Kate and I have a few ideas for maybe creating a production company of sorts in Charleston. and
like a cooking show?
Maybe it'll be the home to some shows.
Oh,
maybe
it
could house our podcast. We want to nurture young writers. More book content down the future. Definitely some cool content on Yoga Glow for my students too that I want to cook up. So yeah, and I just want to thread on the roots in Charleston. So hopefully there's going to be more kind of brick and mortar stuff happening there in the next couple years.
Okay. A little hint there.
Yeah. We'll see.
Oh, well, thank you. It was so fun hanging with you.
Yes,
and
thank you for coming to see me.
Yeah, of course. Cheers.
Cheers.